now from Washington, Republican National Committee Chairman Reince Priebus. Reince, really good to have you on the show.
It's great to have you here, Reince.
Hey, good morning, guys.
How you doing, man?
You know, everyone's complaining about the snow out here. This is like a spring break warm-up for us cheeseheads, you know.
I know. Hey, speaking of cheeseheads, Scott Walker, one of my favorites. Why don't we do a little RNC paid advertisement? God knows we can use it around here after getting killed by Mika on the minimum wage. But Scott Walker, man, he's looking good in the latest polls that have been out up in Wisconsin. This is a guy who, you know, may have some national aspirations.
Well, I mean, I think Scott's a real testament of leadership, especially among our governors. But really, I mean, he's the kind of classic case of where if you just don't overpromise, you make a few big promises and you follow through, and you're a man of your word, and you're genuine, you're authentic, and how you communicate with people, they'll support you. I mean, even you know, some Democrats in Wisconsin think he's doing a great job, and that's helpful.
Isn't it crazy? I've heard some conservatives suggest Scott Walker is not conservative enough. I mean,
you're right.
What exactly do you do with people in our party like that? Seriously, I mean, when Scott Walker is not conservative enough for your party, perhaps you need to go to another party.
Yeah, I haven't heard a whole lot of that, but I'm sure it's out there. You know, I've always tell people we've got to grow our party through addition and multiplication. We can't divide and subtract, and that means building our party where we're weak, and it also means building our party where we're strong, and we have to be stronger. So I've got to be the kind of chairman that communicates to people that basically there are two doors that people can go through. And in 2012, over 60 million people walked through the Mitt Romney Republican door. And I would venture to guess that those 60 million people don't agree on a whole lot. So if we're going to grow our party, we've got to make that door even wider so that people can come through. And that means all aspects of our party have to be welcome in that door.
So I thought Kathy did a good job last night with the response. The Congresswoman, I was a little concerned about 3 Republican responses instead of 1. Don't we need to kind of whittle it down?
Well, isn't that part of the problem you're discussing?
I don't think so.
Seems like we grow a new response every year, you know?
You know, I heard the conversation. I actually don't think so. I think that having Ross Leighton do the response, the Hispanic and Latino response was very good. And I thought the fact that the Tea Party Express had Mike Lee, who's another good Republican.
Mike's a good guy.
And there are people, obviously, in our party that are going to tune into the Tea Party Express, and I think it's a positive thing for the Republican Party for the Tea Party to put in a good Republican, giving a good Republican response, saying this president isn't delivering on his promises and that there's a better way, and there's a Republican senator that's explaining the better way. How is that not good for our party? I think it's great.
Doesn't it show sort of like a sense of you don't really have a leader and someone that you're putting out there as like the universal head of the party who can really respond to the president, and instead you've got 3 kind of No?
Well, here's the reality, Mika. When you're 5 years out of the White House, obviously there are a lot of voices, and I think one of the challenges in our party is obviously to keep all of those different voices in the same room and speaking out of the same hymnal. And I think last night you saw that. Now, granted, different people speaking, but actually if you look back over the last few years, it's the same thing that happened last year and the year before. But keeping the party together. Look, we're going to have targeted races in Montana, South Dakota, Arkansas, Louisiana, West Virginia. These are very red states, and I feel really good about our chances in 2014.
Mr. Chairman, hey, it's John Heilman here. I want to ask you about immigration reform. Something the president only mentioned in one sentence last night. A lot of people interpreted that as him trying to give there be space for a potential compromise going forward. There's been a lot of debate in the last week, though, in your party, some of it on this set, among some Republican strategists who say, hey, I know there are a lot of people, a lot of pressure from the business community. A lot of people think this would be a good thing for the party to get done in 2014. Some people have been pushing back on that, though, and saying bad idea politically for the party in a midterm election. Where do you come down on that, on the political wisdom of getting this done in the course of the next 10 months?
Well, I think if you look at where the biggest Senate races are, it's probably a mixed bag. I mean, I think politically speaking, it's a mixed bag. But the question is whether or not it's something that we have to do as a country. And I think that's what's trumping the political answer. And so, you know, you see in our party, whether you're Rand Paul, who's called for massive immigration reform, or Marco Rubio, I think you have general consensus that something big has to happen. Now, what that is, I can't tell you. But I do know that yesterday at the press conference I was at with Speaker Boehner, Boehner, he pledged that we were going to go to our retreat over the next couple days and come up with a set of principles on immigration reform, and that those set of principles would be revealed and shared with the press as soon as it was done. So, I mean, that's a commitment from the Speaker of the House, and there's a commitment among the most conservative members of our party and the most moderate members of our party that it's something that we have to get serious about, and I think you're seeing that.
Mr. Chairman, Harold Ford, good morning. The President shared
Senator.
yesterday he was looking for more specifics, details from Republicans around health care, as opposed to vote after vote about trying to repeal it. Where do you stand on that, and where do you think, what are some of those specifics? And two, can you support a minimum wage increase, particularly as you look at so many states, including states run by Republicans, that are voting in overwhelming numbers, including Tea Party members, to raise the minimum wage?
Well, I mean, on the minimum wage, I mean, first of all, there's just two things that we've got to put on the table, and the President's got to be willing to sit down and talk to Republicans. One, I mean, it's a kind of a novel idea, but we ought to find a way to pay for these things, so that's number one. Number two, I think we ought to look at some of the 150 bills on jobs that the Republicans passed, and maybe there's a few things that we can put into this program if there is an increase in minimum wage to help get to the root of the problem. On the first part of your question, I think you were at, what was the first part, Senator?
The specifics of health care. What are some of your ideas?
Well, I mean, first of all, I don't think there's anything wrong with the fact that we have a Republican Party that understands that Obamacare is something people don't want, and it's something that we want to either defund or delay. There's nothing to be ashamed of. It's a crummy bill, a crummy law, and people don't like it. But as far as specifics, you know, we've never tried in this country, we've never tried to get to this layer. You know, this layer above the poverty line on access and affordability is the issue. We've never tried ending junk lawsuits. We've never tried the idea of open pricing so that hospitals and doctors actually share with us what these charges are. We've never tried health care pooling, where millions of individuals and businesses can pool their resources together so that people can get lower prices. And, you know, yeah, pre-existing conditions as well, and Mitt Romney ran on that platform. So these are specifics, but we don't get to sit down at the table with the President. I mean, he presents a decent speech, but the follow-through isn't there, and that's the problem, Harold.
Chairman, it's Willie Geist. On a different note, you made some comments on Friday. You were addressing Mike Huckabee's libido comment, and you said something that I thought was pretty smart, which was, guys, we got to have the policy right. We believe we've got the policy right, but we also have to watch our tone. We have to watch the way we're perceived. It's something Joe has said a lot over the years. Just last night, you had a Texas congressman tweeting something from the floor of the House of Representatives saying, I'm waiting on the commandant-in-chief, talking about President Obama, calling him a socialist. What is that message you want to give to Republicans like that about tone?
Well, I mean, I just think that we've got to be really careful with our words, because I think that many people in the media are just waiting in the bushes to jump and create bigger issues out of smaller issues. And look, you know, actually Mike Huckabee had a great message on last week, and I wish people would actually listen to the whole speech, because he actually did pretty well. And I think it goes back to what I said before, which is, you know, we have to promote and we have to be a big party. But I also think that, you know, word choices are important, and I think they're especially important when you know, we're dealing with a stacked deck, I think, as Republicans in this conversation. So that's my point. And I'm pretty careful. I mean, some people say I'm careful.
It was a good message. I mean, it was a good message that Mike Huckabee gave until he started talking about women's libido.
Well, I think it was one word that in the wrong place that people were thrown off with.
And Uncle Sugar.
Listen,
I don't want to make this about Mike Huckabee. I just don't want people going around stamping what you know, all of what Mike Huckabee said on you. You certainly disagree.
It was an interesting message.
Hold on. I need to make sure this is very clear for everybody that's watching. You certainly do not associate yourself with Mike Huckabee's libido comments, do you?
I wouldn't have put that word in there in that place, but I will tell you, I'm not going to be a chairman that throws people under the bus, no matter who they are in our party. I mean, except for the most extreme circumstances, and this is not an extreme circumstance. And so I want to build everybody up in our party. We're not going to divide and subtract. And so, you know, whether it be Governor Huckabee, whether it be Paul Ryan, Rand Paul, or Scott Walker, I need to build this party. And so that means, you know, trying to lay the groundwork, you know, remind people about tone and word choice, but it also means not throwing people under the bus.
There you go. There you go. Spoken like a chairman there.
Who wins the Super Bowl, Ryan? Who wins the Super Bowl, Chairman?
You know, my Packers are out of it.